Okay, let's talk about the behind the neck shoulder press. Is it dangerous? Is there ever a time that you could do it? Is it an exercise that you should avoid at all costs ever? Is it going to lead to impingement or injuries over time? We're going to talk about all that, and specifically what we're going to do is we're going to compare what Jeff Cavaliere from Athlean-X has to say. He's talked about it where he says you should avoid it completely, versus other strength coaches and physical therapists like Paul Carter, a well-known strength coach who says it's perfectly fine to do, and Dr. John Rusin, a strength coach and physical therapist himself, who says again that it's also perfectly fine to do as long as your shoulders are flexible and perfectly mobile and healthy and all that stuff. So we're gonna dive right into all that. So starting with Jeff Cavaliere, Athlean-X, he came out with a video back in 2017 stating that you should avoid this exercise at all costs. The main reasons he said so is because it's not natural for your body's own anatomy. It's not natural to put your shoulders behind in a position like this. It's just awkward, and it's going to put it in a position it doesn't want to be in. You're fighting your own anatomy. That's the claim he makes, and says that your body should be more forward with your elbows more at a 45-degree angle to your body. That's much more in line with your body's natural alignment and its anatomy. He also states that even if people have been doing behind the neck presses for years and never had problems, doesn't mean that you won't over time, because with this position, you will eventually get hurt. That's what his claim is. He just says basically that it is a terrible position to put your shoulder into, and you should never do it. It's much better to just put it in a more natural position to this. Having said that, you've had the other strength coaches I mentioned, Paul Carter and Dr. John Rusin. They have stated the opposite of those things. They said that if your shoulders are perfectly healthy, you have full range of motion, you are perfectly mobile at the shoulder joint, then it's perfectly fine to put it back here. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to lead to injuries. You've had other strength coaches like Tom Morrison who's made the same claim as well. Now, for me personally, I will never do behind the neck presses. That's because I have kyphosis, so my spine is actually curved in the upper part of it. It's just how it grew. It's how it developed over time. It is what it is. So for me, my shoulders are rounded forward a bit. My upper back is rounded forward. My neck is pushed forward a little bit just because of the way my spine is. So for me to put my shoulders in this position behind the neck is not a good idea, because I don't have that flexibility or that mobility in my shoulders to get it back there and for it to be safe for me. So I will never do behind the neck presses. But somebody who has none of the issues that I do, they have the full range of motion and mobility. Paul Carter and Dr. John Rusin, all those, and Tom Morrison state that it's perfectly fine for you to do this position and press. So again, they've gone against one another here, with Jeff Cavaliere stating no, you should never put it, while Paul Carter and the others stating yes, it's perfectly fine as long as your shoulders are healthy. Now, one thing I want to state here is that, and this is my opinion, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an orthopedist, but in my opinion, and this is one thing that Paul Carter also mentioned as well, is that if you look at Olympic athletes, specifically the Olympic lifters, the ones who do the snatch and the clean and jerk and all that stuff, they put their shoulders into this position all the time, because when they catch, such as in the snatch, this is the exact position that they're putting their shoulders in. It's behind their neck where they're catching. They're not catching it out front here. They're catching it out behind their neck. And they've been doing that for years and years and years. And there's not really any complaints in the Olympic lifting community with shoulder issues or anything like that. Does that position really actually over time lead to injury? It's kind of hard to say. And one other thing I want to point out is that putting your shoulders back here behind your head like this is the exact position you have them in when you're doing a barbell squat, a back barbell squat. It's the exact same position. And Jeff Cavaliere has a video where he demonstrates and gives tips on the squat, putting his shoulders in the exact position. So is it really putting your shoulder in that position that's an issue, or is it more when you're pressing in that position that's the issue? And that's kind of hard to say, I think. So there, again, I think it really comes down to, is your shoulders healthy or not? Now, you've also had other strength coaches like Christian Thibodeau, who's made the same arguments as Paul Carter and Dr. John Rusin, stating that, again, if you have healthy shoulders, then it's not really an issue. It's really those who end up having pre-existing shoulder issues, again, like myself with the kyphosis, that are going to have the problems, not so much the exercise itself. So at the end of the day, who here is right? And I think, in my opinion, in some ways both of them are right, and it's gonna heavily depend on the individual, on you, how healthy your shoulders are, if you've ever had problems in that area before, if you really have that full range of motion, if you don't have kyphosis like I do. So in my opinion, I think you can do it once in a while. I don't think you should be doing it year round or all the time. You know, Paul Carter, he himself has advocated doing it all the time. He said that he's had healthy shoulders because he's done the behind the neck press for years and years and years and stuff like that. And maybe that's true for him, but I don't think that's gonna be the case for everybody, even if your shoulders are perfectly healthy. So I think that it can be done as long as you do it once in a while and no more than that. So maybe you add it for one of your 6-week blocks or cycles, maybe 2 or 3 times a year at most, just to get a little bit of that different stimulus into it. Because you do want a little bit of balance. So one thing that Tom Morrison has talked about is the importance of balance. The reason that he does behind the neck presses is because if you're doing front presses like this, where Jeff Cavaliere makes the argument that your natural anatomy is where you should only be pressing, well, if you do that all the time and you keep going like this, keep pressing in front, pressing in front, pressing in front like this, that's gonna lead to an overuse injury. So Tom Morrison makes the argument that you should be doing behind the neck presses just to add a little bit of that balance to it. So you're not gonna cause any of the overuse injuries from pressing in this position, the frontal position, all the time. And I think that makes a little bit of sense. So for me, like I said, if you wanna add it to one of your cycles, 6-week or 8-week cycle, whatever you have in your training program, once, twice, maybe 3 times a year at most, then I think that should be okay, in my opinion. Again, like I said, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a physical therapist. This is, again, just my opinion. I'm just going based off of what both sides have said here and what I think would probably be best for you. At the end of the day, do you have to do behind the neck presses? No. Does it build your shoulders up? Absolutely. Can it be safe at some times? At some times, yes, I think it can, as long as you don't do it all the time. Just use your best judgment. If you don't have the slightest bit of mobility or flexibility in your shoulders, don't do it. It's really that simple. Even if you think you have great mobility and flexibility back there, but you're not 100% perfect back there like Olympic lifters are, or stuff like that, then again, you don't have to do it and don't have to worry about it. There's plenty of other shoulder exercises you can do. But at the end of the day, there's, I think, valid points on both sides as to whether or not it's dangerous. And I think it just comes down to the individual person. And I think you can do it maybe a couple times a year for a block or 2. That's really what it comes down to. All right, guys, so that's my opinion and what I think about the behind the neck press, and specifically what Jeff Cavaliere from Athlean-X has said, along with the other side, Paul Carter and Dr. John Rusin and Tom Morrison and Christian Thibodeau and all those guys. At the end of the day, find out what's best for you. Give it a try if you want to. Don't do it all the time. Start out light. One important thing to do is to make sure your grip is wide. When you do this, you can go in out as far as a snatch grip width for it. And other than that, you should be okay. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this video today. Make sure you subscribe down below. This is Lifting Explained. Really appreciate it if you did subscribe, and I will see you later.